Why do the hardest moments in life shape us in ways we can't always immediately understand? Could it be that crises, instead of destroying us, actually reveal who we truly are? Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers in psychology, believed chaos plays a crucial role in reorganizing and renewing the essence of who we are. For him, crises weren't mere accidents or failures, but opportunities to access deep truths about ourselves. We've all been there, a breakup that leaves an emptiness behind, the loss of a job that threatens our sense of security, or maybe an existential crisis that challenges everything we once believed. These moments seem to dismantle the world we know. But at the same time, wouldn't it be fair to say they force us to look in directions we had previously ignored? In these moments, certainty vanishes, leaving vulnerability as our only companion. For Jung, this vulnerability is the first step toward something greater. He believed that crises are like mirrors reflecting aspects of our psyche we've avoided seeing. It's through this process that the concept of individuation arises, the journey to becoming whole by integrating both the conscious and unconscious sides of ourselves. In this video, we'll explore how Jung interpreted crises and how we can apply his ideas in our daily lives. We'll see that difficulties, while painful, carry within them the potential to transform us in ways we never imagined. We'll come to understand why suffering not only reveals the deepest parts of us, but also offers us a chance for rebirth. Imagine an ordinary day turned upside down. You receive an unexpected call, lose your job, or hear the words, "We need to talk," from someone important to you. The ground feels like it's crumbling beneath you. Certainties collapse, and one question echoes, what now? This moment, so feared and uncomfortable, is what we call a crisis. And Jung believed these situations are not merely devastating events. They have a purpose. For him, crises are like storms that, no matter how chaotic, clear the ground and create space for something new. In practice, nobody enjoys facing the storm. Anyone who's ever had their umbrella ripped away by the wind knows how hard it is to maintain balance when everything around feels unstable. But if we look beyond the discomfort, we notice that the storm also waters the ground, washes away what's decayed, and makes room for new cycles. Carl Jung reinforced this idea with the phrase, "Chaos precedes order." In this way, a crisis can be seen as an opportunity, even if it comes disguised as destruction. How often, in the face of a difficult moment, do we focus solely on the pain rather than the potential for change? If the storm can cleanse and renew, why is it so hard for us to see this side? Part of the answer lies in how we perceive the unknown. Disorientation frightens us because it takes away our sense of control. But Jung saw this loss of control as the beginning of something extraordinary, the chance to reinvent ourselves. In this sense, a crisis is not an end. It's an invitation to transform the old into something new. During a crisis, it feels like everything around us is falling apart. But what if, instead of destroying us, these cracks were the beginning of something greater? For Carl Jung, crises are the starting point for the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who we truly are by integrating all aspects of our psyche, both conscious and unconscious. In other words, it is within chaos that we begin to find completeness. A powerful example comes from Viktor Frankl, who, during his time in a concentration camp, transformed an environment of extreme suffering into a search for purpose. He found meaning even in the most inhumane situations, showing that in the depths of chaos, it is possible to discover an inner strength that guides us toward growth. Jung viewed this process as individuation, a path of self-discovery that helps us reorganize life through the most challenging experiences. If we look at nature, this concept becomes even clearer. A caterpillar, upon entering its cocoon, has no idea it is about to become a butterfly. It faces darkness, discomfort, and even the apparent destruction of its form. But it is precisely in this critical stage that metamorphosis occurs. In the same way, personal crises can be seen as our cocoon, a period of isolation and pain that ultimately allows us to emerge stronger and more complete. Just like the storm described earlier, the chaos of individuation also brings reorganization. It tears down old structures and forces us to see new paths. The difference is that this time, we are not just surviving. We are transforming into something more resilient, more integrated, and closer to our true selves. Have you ever noticed how strange dreams begin to appear during moments of crisis? Or how certain thoughts and memories insist on surfacing, as if they have something important to tell us? For Carl Jung, this is no coincidence. In times of crisis, the unconscious awakens and tries to communicate. It brings forth repressed content that would otherwise remain hidden, subtly but powerfully influencing our lives. Imagine someone facing the stress of losing a job. Amid restless nights, they begin to dream of doors closing, and others, curiously, opening. This dream isn't just a reflection of fear, but a message from the unconscious. While one chapter ends, another opportunity is beginning. Jung summed this up powerfully. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, crises are moments when we are invited, or forced, to listen to what the unconscious is trying to say. In his book, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung shares how he himself faced these periods. During his own crises, he realized that the dreams and symbols that emerged weren't just fantasies, but valuable clues about what needed to be integrated or adjusted in his life. For Jung, the unconscious isn't an enemy. It's a guide that often uses crises as a last resort to be heard. How often do we ignore these signals? We dismiss recurring dreams, intense emotions, or fleeting insights. The problem is that by silencing the unconscious, it finds other ways to express itself, through physical symptoms, external conflicts, or even larger crises. So, why not listen? Why not pay attention to what is asking to be transformed? During a crisis, emotions like anger, envy, or deep sadness often rise to the surface. These feelings, which we usually try to hide, become impossible to ignore. Jung referred to this as the shadow, the aspects of ourselves we repress because we believe they're unacceptable. It's during crises that light inadvertently enters the dark room of our mind, illuminating everything we've kept hidden. Think of someone who, after missing out on a promotion at work, feels overwhelming envy toward the colleague who was chosen. At first glance, this emotion seems like something to push away or deny. But according to Jung, this is precisely where opportunity lies. The shadow, while uncomfortable, is a part of us that holds valuable information about our desires, fears, and aspirations. He famously said, "The shadow contains 90% of a person's gold." In other words, the very things we avoid confronting might be exactly what we need to grow, returning to the storm metaphor. Imagine that it not only topples trees, but also reveals what was buried beneath the soil. Similarly, a crisis brings to the surface parts of ourselves that we've spent our lives ignoring. This is the direct connection to the unconscious. It uses difficult moments to bring the shadow to light, so we can integrate it and move closer to wholeness. However, facing the shadow takes courage. Admitting we feel anger, envy, or fear is uncomfortable. But Jung believed that ignoring these aspects is even worse, because what we repress only grows in strength and influence. So, when a crisis exposes the shadow, the question we must ask ourselves is, will we keep running from it, or will we embrace this part of us as a necessary step toward transformation? When life feels chaotic and signs from the unconscious begin to appear, recurring dreams, intense emotions, or sudden insights, what can we do? Jung believed that simply recognizing these messages isn't enough. We need to decode them and take action. For him, the unconscious speaks through symbols, and learning to understand this language is a skill anyone can develop. A simple yet powerful practice is keeping a dream journal. Imagine someone going through a crisis who starts writing down their dreams every morning. Over time, they notice patterns, perhaps recurring images of doors or roads. This process helps connect the unconscious to the challenges they're facing in daily life. As Jung put it, symbols are the language of the unconscious. They don't speak directly, but point us toward paths worth exploring. In addition to dreams, conscious reflection is another valuable tool. In a moment of calm, writing down recurring thoughts, fears, or desires that arise during a crisis can reveal behavioral patterns we might not have noticed before. For instance, someone who realizes that they feel disproportionate anger every time they face criticism might begin to explore what this emotion is trying to communicate. Perhaps it signals an old wound that needs acknowledgement. These practices connect directly to the shadow discussed earlier. When we embrace the messages of the unconscious instead of rejecting them, we gain the opportunity to transform what once seemed like a weakness into a valuable resource. Listening to the unconscious, therefore, becomes a way of finding meaning and direction amidst chaos. In moments of crisis, it's easy to feel adrift, as if we have no control. But Jung saw crises as part of a larger dynamic, the constant balance between chaos and order. Just like the yin-yang symbol reminds us that opposites coexist and complement each other, personal transformation requires both the stability of order and the unpredictability of chaos. Jung's own life illustrates this idea. His break with Sigmund Freud, for instance, was a time of significant emotional and intellectual turbulence. Yet, it was this very chaos that pushed him to question old structures and develop his theories about the collective unconscious, archetypes and individuation. He found a new order within chaos, but only after confronting it. Think of it as a dance. If everything were order, life would be stagnant, predictable, and devoid of change. On the other hand, if everything were chaos, there would be no firm ground to stand on. The key lies in the movement between these two poles, allowing each crisis to temporarily unbalance us, but always with the potential to find a new point of stability. The practices mentioned earlier, like keeping a dream journal and engaging in conscious reflection, support this process. They act as tools to transform internal chaos into insights and to reorganize life. But here's the question. If we avoid chaos at all costs, are we truly safe, or just stuck in the same place? Crises have the power to profoundly transform those who face them, not only on an individual level, but also throughout human history. Great figures show us that moments of pain and disorder can become fertile ground for extraordinary achievements. Friedrich Nietzsche, for example, endured debilitating health crises and emotional isolation for much of his life. Yet, it was within this context that he wrote some of his most influential works, such as Thus Spoke Zarathustra, where he explored the concept of the Übermensch, Superman, and humanity's ability to transcend difficulties. Another example is Frida Kahlo, whose life was marked by health crises and emotional loss. After a severe accident left her with chronic pain, she turned to painting as a way to express her suffering and rebuild her identity. Frida transformed adversity into art, creating works that continue to resonate deeply with those confronting their own challenges. These stories show us that the balance between chaos and order, discussed earlier, is evident in those who turn difficulties into creative strengths. It's fascinating to see how these individuals faced adversity with courage and resilience, often producing something that transcended their initial suffering. Perhaps what unites them is their ability to accept chaos as an integral part of the process of reinventing themselves. These examples are not just inspiring. They show us that, like Nietzsche and Frida, we too have the ability to find meaning amidst chaos and emerge stronger and transformed. A crisis, contrary to how it often feels, can be the beginning of something extraordinary. We live in a world that seems to have quick fixes for everything. Feeling sad? There's a meditation app for that. Feeling stressed? Watch a few motivational videos. Modernity offers us an endless array of tools to cope with crises, but often these solutions merely mask the problems rather than addressing them. For Carl Jung, this would be like placing a band-aid on a wound that needs deeper healing. Take social media, for example. It offers us endless distractions. How often, when facing a difficult moment, do we find ourselves mindlessly scrolling, trying to avoid the discomfort of confronting our feelings? It's like trying to escape a storm by hiding under a tree. In the short term, it might seem to work, but in the long run, it doesn't solve the problem. The crisis remains, waiting for our attention. Another hallmark of modernity is the quest for instant solutions. Motivational gurus promise radical change in 24 hours, while quick therapies offer immediate relief without exploring the root causes. This can be tempting. But are we truly addressing our crises, or just postponing the confrontation? The depth so valued by Jung seems to be replaced by the superficiality of quick answers. In contrast, the historical examples we discussed earlier demonstrate that true transformation requires time, reflection, and courage. Modern society, with its fast pace and emphasis on productivity, often pulls us away from this process. Yet crises don't disappear just because we choose to ignore them. As Jung taught, crises have a purpose, to reveal what we need to see in order to grow. So, the choice is ours. Will we use modern tools to avoid confronting our crises? Or can we take a step back, reflect, and accept the challenge of facing them deeply? If crises are inevitable, how can we use them to our advantage? Jung believed the key to transforming difficult moments into opportunities begins with self-reflection and a willingness to explore the unconscious. For this, there are simple, yet highly effective practices that help bring meaning to chaos. One powerful tool is dream analysis. During crises, our dreams often reveal symbols that help us understand what's happening on a deeper level. Writing these dreams in a journal and reflecting on recurring patterns is a practical way to decode the messages of the unconscious. For instance, someone who repeatedly dreams of bridges might interpret this as a need to create connections, perhaps with themselves or with others. Beyond dreams, meditation focused on the unconscious is another transformative practice. This can be as simple as setting aside a few minutes each day to sit in silence and allow spontaneous thoughts and images to arise. This technique, known as active imagination, was extensively explored by Jung and provides a way to engage directly with the unconscious. Therapy is another essential tool. Jung emphasized the importance of integrating the shadow, and a therapist trained in analytical psychology can guide this process. For example, a professional recovering from burnout might use these techniques to identify patterns of self-sabotage and realign their career with their core values. Finally, small daily rituals of self-reflection, such as journaling about challenges or setting conscious goals to address them, help transform chaos into order. Crises, far from being mere obstacles, are gateways to deep growth, and the right tools can help us navigate them with greater clarity and purpose. In times of crisis, spirituality can serve as the thread that guides us through the chaos. For Carl Jung, spirituality wasn't merely about belief systems. It was an essential connection to the deepest parts of our psyche. He argued that without a sense of purpose or a relationship with something greater than ourselves, finding meaning in suffering becomes far more difficult. Spirituality acts as a kind of compass, pointing us forward even when everything feels uncertain. Imagine someone navigating through a thick fog. Although their immediate vision is obscured, a distant lighthouse provides direction and reassurance. During crises, spiritual practices, whether religious, philosophical, or personal reflections, expand our perspective and remind us that moments of hardship don't define the entirety of who we are. For instance, someone dealing with a profound loss might turn to meditation or inspiring literature to find a sense of calm. These practices create the space to view the crisis as part of a larger cycle, rather than solely as an episode of pain. Jung recognized that spiritual symbols and archetypes, such as the hero or the journey, often emerge in these moments to guide us toward growth. Spirituality also complements practical tools like dream analysis. A recurring dream might bring profound symbols that connect an individual to a greater purpose, while meditation fosters the clarity needed to interpret these messages. By combining the tangible with the transcendent, we build a bridge between our current reality and the potential for transformation that the crisis offers. Thus, spirituality is not an escape but a powerful resource for navigating life's most challenging moments. It reminds us that even when everything feels uncertain, a deeper meaning can always be found. Crises are uncomfortable, painful, and often frightening, but they are also gateways to something greater. Jung taught us that instead of running from these moments, we should face them as opportunities for transformation. After all, it is in chaos that we find the seeds of order, and in vulnerability that we discover our strength. Think about everything we've explored here. We've seen that crises are not just about what we lose, but also about what we can find. They activate the unconscious, reveal the shadow, and push us toward individuation, the journey of becoming whole. We've learned that simple practices, such as dream analysis, can transform chaos into insight, while spirituality connects us with a greater purpose. Now, here's a question for you to reflect on. How have the crises in your life shaped who you are? Is there something they've been trying to reveal? Jung believed that crises are a form of rebirth. They force us to let go of the old to make space for the new. It's not easy, but it's profoundly transformative. So the next time life feels unstable, remember this: the greatest changes begin in discomfort. Embrace crises as invitations to better understand yourself and to create a new order from chaos. As Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens."